Welcome to Sound Leadership with DJ, the podcast that dives deep into the world of leadership. If you're passionate about learning from the brightest minds in the field, you're in the right place. In each episode, we embark on an inspiring journey alongside successful leaders, unraveling the secrets behind their accomplishments. From their early beginnings to their current roles, we'll explore the unique paths they traveled to reach their present status. We'll dive into their biggest challenges and pivotal lessons and gain invaluable tips for inspiring leaders. Today, we have a remarkable guest with us, someone who embodies transformational leadership with empathy, resilience, and grit. Dr. Jose Arnold Tiga, better known to many as Dr. A. Dr. A is the Director of Clinical Education and Development at Insight Global Health, and he's here to share his incredible journey and insights on transformational leadership, navigating the challenges of being a minority, and the importance of grit and resilience in leadership. Dr. A is an internationally educated nurse with over 15 years of experience in various clinical settings and educational settings across the globe. Did I mention Dr. A holds a PhD in developmental education, 2 master's degrees in nursing, and a multitude of certifications in healthcare quality and education. He has been recognized with numerous awards, including the Healthcare Professional of the Year Award in 2019 and Asia's Distinguished Nurse Educator in 2023. Dr. A is currently leading the development and implementation of an international transition to practice program for internationally educated nurses in the United States. Dr. A serves on the board of directors for the Society of International Educated Nurses in North America and is an ambassador for the United Vessel of Love Foundation, advocating for underserved communities in South Africa. Dr. A will shed his light on what it takes to be a transformational leader in today's diverse and challenging world. He'll discuss the significance of empathy, resilience, and grit in leadership, and explore his experience as a minority leader. Sound Leadership with DJ wants you to stay connected with us and stay up to date. And you can do so by liking our social media pages. You can join us on LinkedIn and YouTube at Sound Leadership with DJ, where we share updates and pivotal additional content and behind-the-scenes glimpses on episodes just like this. And don't forget, you can listen to our podcast on various platforms, including Apple Music, Alexa, iHeart, and so much more. Simply search Sound Leadership with DJ and hit that subscribe button to never miss an episode. Now, this is what you're here for. I want you to buckle up, be prepared to be inspired, motivated, and empowered to be your best self. Welcome, Dr. A.
Thank you so much, DJ, and for having me on this platform. I'm very grateful to be with you today.
Hey, I was reading your bio and I was amazed, to have someone of your caliber take time out of their day to speak with me and also the viewers of Sound Leadership with DJ. I did that introduction and we talked about you being an internationally trained nurse, someone with a PhD, someone with 2 master's degrees and multitude of certifications. But as I always say, it holds no candlelight to who you are. So tell us, who is Dr. A?
So I would say that's a very funny question, DJ. And when you mentioned about all those accolades and all those qualifications, because it sort of was born out of necessity at one point because of me being in minority. So Dr. A is Joey or Arnold from where I come from. So I'm from the Philippines. I am a nurse by background and have been a nurse over the last 15 years. I started my nursing career in the intensive care unit and then moved into clinical education. But when I started my nursing career in the Philippines, I found it quite challenging from the financial side of it because I think for many of the underdeveloped countries, nursing as a profession is not necessarily very well paid. So I decided to move into the different part of the world in the Middle East, and then started my career there as well as a bedside nurse, and then moved into leadership. But while I was moving towards the leadership pathway, things happened, and it did not bode very well for me.
Wow.
And at one point, I would say because of me not being Western trained, a lot of opportunities were closed,
Wow.
and there was even a point that I was promoted as a leader, and then was eventually demoted just because I didn't have Western qualification. And I went into depression because for me, like I really worked hard as a person of color, trying to prove
Yeah.
myself and my worth as a nurse and as a leader. But then that sort of turned out to be a pivoting moment in my life because that opened up um, my my mind to a different type of nursing, which is now the education side of nursing. And since then, I tried pursuing clinical education. Initially, it was also not very easy to move into clinical education again because it all goes back to me not having the Western training and Western qualification. But I would say that I think when you're passionate about something, um, you work very hard to make
Yes.
sure that you can deliver. At the same time, that was when I also tried to pursue additional qualifications, postgrads, certifications from the US to also prove that even if I'm not necessarily Western trained, I am equally or even more capable than my Western counterparts. And yeah, I would say maybe I've proven myself and
Yes.
eventually got into leadership positions for clinical education, and then at one point did some work in the academia as well as a professor in nursing. And then while I was working in the Middle East, I can just see that, based on my prior experiences, there might be again limitations on where I can grow as a professional and as a leader. So I sort of tried searching for a place that I felt like I would be given the opportunity to grow and achieve my aspirations as a professional. So I decided to move to the United States. So I'm very fresh to the United States, actually. I just moved last year.
Are you serious?
Yeah, yes.
No.
I just moved here in April of 2022. And
Congratulations.
so much. Thank you.
You took a leap of faith. I didn't know you were just here. So you took a leap of faith. So I don't want to interrupt you, but how has your year been? Because you went from moving here to now a director of clinical education for a large organization.
I know it has been mind blowing, DJ. I'm telling you. I think but it took me like 10 years to sort of move up in the ladder while I was in the Middle East, because of me being a person of color and not having all those trains that they were looking for. Um, it took me a year to move up the ladder here in the United States, because I was not looked at as someone of a specific nationality, as a person of color, but I was looked at as a person who has the experience, who has
Yes.
educational qualification, who is a
Yes.
person who can actually do and deliver.
Yes.
So yeah, the last year here in the United States has just been amazing. Like I started working as a bedside nurse in a post-acute rehab, and I'm telling you, DJ, I struggled because I'm an IC nurse by training. So I'm used to the ratio of like 1:2,
Yes.
3. So to be placed in a unit where you will be handling like 7 to 10
Yeah.
post rehab patients who has a lot of needs, was very challenging for me physically and psychologically because my mind was still adjusting on like how am I going to be able to deliver the care that I would want to deliver for these
Yes.
patients when I don't have the bandwidth to do it. So I still did try to do my best, to deliver high quality care. At the same time, I started looking for an education job. I was so lucky again because I guess like this is the thing here in the United States, like I would say that they do not discriminate, like as long as you have those qualifications and experience. I applied in different organizations and some schools as well, just looking at where I can like maybe have an opportunity to teach either in the clinical area or the academia. And after 4 months, I got an offer to work as an assistant professor in one of the nursing schools here in Massachusetts. So I worked for a semester, and it was so amazing because in December of 2022, I received a call from a LinkedIn connection of mine telling me that another connection of him, the vice president of the organization that I'm working now, was looking for an educator to join their program, to lead and curate a curriculum for an international transition to practice. And I was like, oh, this is something that I've done when I was in the Middle East because I did some transition to practice program for the nurses, but that was like facility wide. That
Yes.
was like an international program. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna give it a try. I'm gonna talk to them, and see what their vision and mission is for their program. And when I spoke to Josh Sider, our vice president that I'm working with now, he told me about their vision of, helping Filipino nurses and other internationally educated nurses to transition to the United States. And they wanted to make sure that they have prior training before they come to the US, to make sure that they feel competent and confident while working here. And I was like, oh my God, like this is something that I'm so passionate about, because this is the me in my previous life, like I would have wanted to have that preparation before I transition, so that I would be ready, like not just as a professional moving or being transplanted into the US, but actually as a person who's moving to a new country, a new community with a different cultural background. So long story short, I said yes. And in January of 2023, this year, like I joined as their director of clinical education, and we've started a program last July, and now we've been helping nurses transition to the United States. So it's been a whirlwind over the last year in the US, but it's been so amazing, DJ. I would say, like, the opportunities that I have been presented with has just been so overwhelmingly good.
I am in awe. I usually take notes, as the speaker's talking, to lead into my next question, and I don't know where to go. Didn't drop so many jewels on sound leadership with DJ. The fact that you've only been here a year. One, I would have never known had you not told us, especially with your social media following, your presence on social media, and the things that you are achieving.
Oh, thank you.
It's top notch, and I applaud you as a leader in this space, as an educator in this space. So let's dive a little bit. You were here, you've been here a year. What was that transition like? Personal growth, from a leadership perspective, right? To step out on faith. What was that like to leave where you were from and come over here and really just try to make it work? As a leader, sometimes we have to step out on faith. And we have to believe in ourselves and believe in our visions when others will not. So Definitely. What was that like for you as a person coming over from another country?
I would say it was very scary, DJ. I think, moving to a new place, as much as, this was not my first move, because I moved out of the Philippines to the Middle East. I was so scared because I didn't know if things will work out for me, having had a lot of negative experiences while I was in the Middle East. And I just didn't know if I will fit in. And really, I think I really just pushed the courage inside me, like that. And I think I just have a belief and the trust that if and when things will not work out for me as a person or as a professional, moving into a new place, I think that will just be a redirection for me to my next best destination. I always have that mantra now, having experienced a lot of challenges in my life. Like, I don't consider things as a rejection or a failure. I always see it as a redirection. So if things would not have worked out for me here in the US, then maybe I would have been redirected to another place where I will thrive.
Wow. Well, you're thriving here.
I am. I'm so grateful.
And you're thriving here as a person of color and as another minority. We're not going to just skate over that. You're a male in this field.
Yeah, in this profession, exactly. There are only very few of us, DJ. You know that.
And then it's interesting, right? Because as you climb that ladder, it gets fewer and fewer, right? So I see that PhD behind your name. Very few, so even at the MSc and PhD level, it's very few. So applauding you for your efforts. It's interesting that you've mentioned that there was a difference between Western nursing and nursing back home. Can you talk to us about what you saw as a difference between Western nursing and the nursing that you were familiar with, and some of the barriers you had to achieve or overcome to transition here?
Of course. I would say that one of the main differences will be the availability of resources. In terms of, nursing in general, I would say it's the same all throughout. Really, like nurses, our main mission and vision is really to help and serve those who needs help, right? We try to provide the best care that we can. But in the communities that I've worked with, especially in the Philippines, we do have very limited resources. And as much as we would want to try the best, we would want to try to provide the best care. When you don't have the resources that you need, sometimes you become so limited in what you can do, right? And I guess this is the reason why a lot of internationally educated nurses coming from countries like mine in the Philippines are so creative on how they provide care, because that is how we do things back home. You try to follow international standards, but you can't, just because you don't have the things that you need. So you still try to make sure that you deliver the type of care with the minimal resources that you have. And I think another difference that I would say is like the availability of professional growth, or the avenues for professional growth. So in the Philippines, when I was still working there, my vision of, in terms of where I'm going to go as a professional, was mostly on either leadership, and or becoming a clinical instructor or an educator in the academia. So when I came here in the United States, like, you can be whoever you want, right? Like, you can be a leader, you can be a nurse practitioner, you can be an educator, and even with being an educator, you can be an educator in the academia, you can be an educator in the clinical area, you can be an educator in the corporate world, but while still doing nursing. So I think that the having a lot of doors, to really follow what you are very passionate about as a nurse and as a person, um, is what sets United States apart from my home country anyway, and I would say maybe even with some other countries, because here as a nurse you can just be whoever you want to be while still practicing the nursing profession.
Wow. Well, I think it's interesting to hear you say, over there you felt kind of restricted into the various roles that you can have. Now, you had your PhD back home, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
And it's interesting for someone of your caliber to have that PhD to still feel kind of, pigeonholed in a position, and then to come here and be exposed to any and everything that you want to do. So what was that shock like? I'm sure there was a level of culture shock to get here and say, well, I can really be what I want to be. I can be any type of leader. I can be any type of clinical educator. What was that like?
Yeah, I would say it was very challenging, DJ. I think when you are molded in a mindset,
Yes.
wherein there are limitations and barriers, and like people around you will tell you what you can and cannot do,
Yes.
it's just so difficult to get out of that mindset. And I would even say, like, up until now, sometimes there are still some bits of those voices, that haunts me, I would say, telling me sometimes that, oh, you're actually not capable of doing it. So yeah, you know, when I moved here, and then when I saw how people can be very supportive, and I guess that's another blessing that I would say, that I'm really very happy about, because here, like, I felt like I've met the right people, and like I've only met people who have been very supportive, um, in every step of the way. Like, you know, I've never heard a person tell me here that you cannot do that. Like, when for example, when I talk about something, or when I propose about some initiatives, there's always a follow-up conversation about how we can do this, not like how you can't do this because you are not capable or you're not able to do it. So yeah, I think it's, you know um sometimes it can really be very difficult when you are limited, because you have been sucked into that mindset that you can't do stuff just because others around you are telling you that you are not able to. um and I would say, as a person and as a leader, like, it takes a lot of courage and unfreezing and refreezing your mindset, so that you can come out from the self-limiting belief that you are actually capable, that you can actually do things, and you don't have to wait for other people to tell you that you can. But as much as it can be scary, it's always good as well to just give it a
Mhm.
try. Just
Yeah.
know that you can do it. And again, if it doesn't work, then maybe there are other things that you can do so that things can work out for you.
And as I've said, and I'll continue to say, your journey is inspiring and empowering, and not only to me, I'm sure for the viewers. For someone to be here in the U.S. less than a year, and to rise to the level that you have risen to is an amazing journey. But it's also a testament to your passion, your grit, as you would call it. So, talk to us about your grit, and I use that term because that is the term that you placed
Yeah.
in your bio. But what does that mean to you to have achieved such success very quickly? But knowing that success didn't come overnight, right? You spoke that you've been doing
Yeah.
this for 10 years in another two countries, so it didn't
I
come
know,
overnight.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, no, that's a very good question. I think um firstly I'd like to talk about, finding your passion, because I think for everything that has happened in my career and in my life, in the Middle East and now moving to the United States, I would say that it is very important for all of us actually as professionals and as human beings to know what we are most passionate about, and to really invest on that passion, because once you know what you are passionate about, things will just align. And in a way, as what I said earlier, when you are able to do what you are passionate about, and you get paid for it, how amazing would that be? Because that will not feel like you're doing something that you have to work hard for, right? Because it's just like enjoying what you are doing and getting paid for it. And I'm not so sure if you're familiar with the term ikigai,
No,
or
no, educate
that.
us.
Yeah. So I've always subscribed now to the concept of ikigai. So with ikigai, there are sort of four questions. Um, and once you are able to align the answers to those four questions, they said that you would have found your ikigai, or your life's purpose. So with ikigai, it's technically answering the four questions of: what do you love? What are you good at? What does the world need? And what you can get paid for. So I didn't know about this concept up until I started reflecting and stuff and reading about self development. And when I started answering the questions, like, it sort of aligned that education and teaching, and even leading in education and teaching, is really sort of my ikigai, because um, answering the question what I love teaching, I love knowledge sharing. That's one thing. And then what am I good at? Well, my learners have told me that I'm a good educator and I'm good at transferring knowledge. So I'm
Yeah.
taking that comment from them. What I can get paid for, I can get paid for as an educator, either in the clinical area or in the academia. And what does the world need? Well, the world needs a lot of nurse educators right now, because we need a lot of nurses that needs educating. So I was sort of like, oh, I've sort of found my center spot for my, my life's purpose. And that is the reason why I'm really very passionate, and I'm very gritty, I would say. I really work hard and persevere in the field of education, and try to lead in education in however way possible, and try to give back through education as well, like participating in conferences, when I got invites to speak, like, I do it for free,
Mm.
locally, internationally, just to make sure that I share what I have. Because I would say that I am blessed as a professional, being able to experience all the things that I've had experience in the Middle East, here in the United States. And I would love to share this with those nurses who are also wanting to grow their profession.
Wow. So much passion, and we can tell that you love education, right?
I do.
When we talk about loving education, right, you believe in it. You have a PhD in nursing, and you have two master's degrees. Talk to us about that journey to continue to educate yourself and promote self development. What is that like for you?
So I've always been passionate about continuous learning. I think as a person, as a professional, I always believe that um, well, the only constant thing in the world is change, and with change comes the change in information, the change in knowledge, change in nursing. A lot of the information that we've learned in nursing 5 years ago might not be true today, just because there has been a lot of changes. So yeah, when I was in the Philippines, I started doing my master's degree, initially not because of I wanted to become an educator, but because I wanted to move into the leadership pathway. So in the Philippines, usually positions are given to those with postgrad degrees. But then when I started working on my master's degree, I've actually felt in love with education and stuff. I'm with the school. I don't know. Like, I think it was a very good environment. It was like everyone was just so passionate about what they do. My professors were so helpful. Like, I didn't feel like a student. I felt like I was a colleague of my
Wow.
professors,
Yes.
and it has given me a very different perspective about graduate school. So when I finished my first master's and I decided to like go for the second one with the different specializations, and it was still at the same school. Yeah, I think that school was just, I would say it was just amazing. It was an amazing experience. Um, and then moving into the UAE, that was when I started looking into different avenues for growth. So I actually started my doctorate through distance learning, and then in the Middle East, like they always say that, yeah, you have postgrads, but this is not Western qualification. So I sort of learned from their feedback. So what I did is I started taking some certifications from the United States. I also looked into where I can enroll for some postgraduate studies. I've been so lucky because I got accepted in Harvard Medical School for a postgraduate certificate in medical teaching. So it was good because it was still aligned
Yes.
with my passion in teaching. So yeah, I did that, and so I finished my PhD and again pursued that postgraduate in Harvard and did some certifications. And I sort of told myself that when I apply for the next job here in the Middle East, and when they tell me that I'm not qualified because I don't have Western training, then I can tell them that, well, I have some certifications already. I have a postgraduate certificate from Harvard Medical School. So like, what
Yes.
else are you gonna be looking for? So
Yes.
in a way, it was like a two-pronged approach. Like it was hitting two birds at the same time. Like I pursued continuing education for me, of course, to learn and grow, to
Yeah.
become a better educator, but also at the same time to help me out with my career struggles in the Middle East because it was just so difficult. But for
Yeah.
me, it worked out well for me because I was able to get the jobs there at the later part of my career in the Middle East before I moved here. And yeah, it helped me a lot with my role now as an educator. And fun fact, actually, my capstone project in Harvard became the framework of the International Transition to Practice program that I'm using now to help
Wow.
nurses. So like things were just falling into place. DJ.
Wow.
Yeah, it has been an amazing journey, I would say.
Well, it's definitely a testament to your grit and your resilience. And as you start to transition into leadership, you identify as a transformational leader.
Mhm.
What is transformational leader and what is transformational leadership?
Uh-huh. So I would say, from my own perspective, I think transformational leadership is really leading by inspiring and motivating people. Like there are a lot of ways on how to lead, but I do feel like when you inspire others, when you share the same vision with the people that you are leading, I would say that you become a more effective leader, and it's easier to actually motivate them to share and or to do things towards achieving your goals if you and the team that you are leading has a shared vision, because then you are aligned in terms of, oh, this is what we want to achieve, because this is what
Yes.
we want to do as a collective, as opposed to just like telling them what to do.
Wow. So, for yourself, what do you look for in a leader?
um I would say that I would look for a leader who knows how to listen.
Yes.
It is very important, and because like when we are leading, we are actually leading people with different expertise, with different perspectives. So by listening and considering what other people has to say, it gives you a different point of view. It gives you a very different perspective. And like when you create that decision then in terms of what you're supposed to do, then you sort of have a well balanced decision because you have considered the different sides of things. Another thing that I'm looking for in a leader is someone who is firm but compassionate. We are humans, and as much as we want things to go on a specific way, things can happen in life. So I want a leader who is empathetic, who can understand that things can happen and life happens. Uh, but like even if life happens, it does not reduce myself as a leader or as a member of the team. I can still help out, but maybe there will be times that I will be the one needing support, like that I might be the one needing help, and I might not be able to contribute a lot at certain times just because things are happening to me. But that shouldn't reduce my part, as part of the team, whether I'm a leader or I'm a member of the team.
Wow. So it's interesting you say that, and we started this podcast with you being a minority nurse, a minority educator, a minority leader. So what can you, with that in mind, in that framework there, what role does diversity, equity, and inclusion play into leadership?
Oh, I would say that is very, very important, DJ. Yeah, as a person of color who has experienced indirect racism while I was in the Middle East,
Wow.
um, it it was very difficult not to have someone who can advocate for you, and someone who does look beyond your color. Because I guess that's the thing, people who are not very familiar with the concept of DEI will usually just consider color, qualifications, um, as something that is a requisite of what the person's capabilities are. And I was a victim of that. Like when I was working there, like just because I'm a Filipino, a person of color, not having the Western training, I was deprived of the opportunities of progressing in my career. So I think having a person of color in leadership positions is very important, because it then provides an avenue or opportunity for other leaders to see that leadership is not based on color. Leadership is not necessarily based on education, and yes, it does help to be educated, to be a leader, but your effectiveness as a leader is not solely dependent on that. And of course, if you have a person who is a person of color leading, it also provides an inspiration for others who might have experienced like the same experience that I had, um, that they can actually do things. They are actually capable, no matter what other peoples are telling them that they are not capable of doing. If someone is there who looks like them, is doing something great and is making impact in their community or in their society, then that speaks a lot to them, and that can then motivate others to actually pursue their passions and like move into leadership positions as well.
Wow. You come with a wealth of knowledge, and I'm sure that knowledge benefits the role that you are in now as the director of clinical education. Can you tell us more about the company and more about the role and more about your impact you have in developing this program and launching it to the success that it is today?
Of course. So with the current role, my main responsibility really, before we started anyway, was to curate the curriculum
Hmm.
for the International Transition to Practice program. So traditionally, a lot of staffing companies and recruitment agencies will bring their nurses here in the United States and then have them trained by the hospital system that they're going to be working in. But what we wanted to try to do differently is we wanted to make sure that these nurses are actually ready even before they come here in the United States. So what we have done is we did some scoping reviews and systematic reviews of the studies that has been out there. We did some surveys from nurses who have gone through the transition from their home countries to the United States, and looked into the different factors that impacts their transition, that makes their transition more seamless. And then it came up with 4 different modules that looked into their United States integration, workforce integration here in the United States, and then the clinical workflows, clinical equipment, amongst many others. Um, so since then, yeah, I've been the one working on making sure that all those modules are really integrated and incorporated into the program. Aside from that, I also work with the hospital partners that we have, because of course we will be placing these nurses that we hired internationally, right, in our hospital system. So one of the main goals, of course, is to make sure that whatever they learn is also aligned to the processes and the guidelines in that hospital that they're going to be working. So I work closely with the director of clinical education of our hospital partners, as well as their education and simulation team, to make sure that the trainings that they have here in the US is actually really mimicked, as close as possible
Yes.
there in the Philippines, so that when these nurses come here in the United States, whatever they're going to be seeing in the clinical area will not be new to them.
Yes.
because that has always been my fear. As a person coming outside the United States, moving into the United States. Well, US is very high tech. We're very fast in acquiring the latest technology in healthcare and stuff like that. Um, and if you come from a developing country like the Philippines, we didn't even have, well, during my time, I didn't even have electronic medical recording system. So coming in here, getting exposed to Cerner or to Epic, I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? Like, mind you, DJ, when I started working at the bedside, I spent like, I would say out of 12 hours, I spent like more than 75% in the computer because I was learning like how
Yes.
tab am I gonna click this time? Like,
Interesting.
yeah, so these are some of the things that we have incorporated in our international transition to practice program to make sure that when they come here, these things will not be new to them because we would rather have them spend most of their time with patient care, right? Like if they can spend more time with their patients, then that will definitely improve patient outcomes as opposed to them just sitting in front of their computers. Because you know how it is now, like a lot of
Yeah.
the things needs to be documented as well, because that involves the pay and stuff.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, if they can maximize their time with patients as opposed to just sitting in front of computers, then that is what we want because we want them to be caring for the patient, not caring for the computer. So
That's interesting, right? Because to me, that makes you perfect for the role. You freshly just went through transition to the United
Mhm.
States, and something that you talked about is the EMRs, EHRs, and what's interesting is for me in the U.S., I thought that was an established practice across the world, but for somebody coming in who is not from the U.S., it was unfamiliar to you, and you spent more time caring for that computer than you did for the patient. So I find that very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I think there are a lot of things, I think different perspectives, coming from internationally educated nurses, and that's one thing that I even brought up to our hospital partners. I said that I want to create like a cultural awareness session with the team because I want you to understand our culture so that you will understand the perspectives of a Filipino nurse, for example.
Yeah.
Why are Filipino nurses like this? And it's not because maybe we are bad nurses or something like that, but it's just because things happen differently from our home country. And now you are being placed, for example, in a country that has all the resources and stuff. So, for example, like I'm used to doing a specific procedure in a shortcut manner just because I don't have all the equipments that I can use to follow the step by step things. But
Yeah.
here you have to follow like the step by step because you have all the equipments that you need, the consumables that you need. So there's no excuse for you to do shortcuts, right? Because you have everything.
That's interesting you say that. No excuse to do shortcuts because we still see it so much. And for somebody like yourself who's not used to having the resources and you're like, look, you have it there, you can actually do it. It's mind blowing. But as we bring this podcast to a close, you brought a different perspective that hasn't been brought to Sound Leadership. You brought the perspective of a minority nurse who transitioned from a different country, two different countries,
Mhm.
over to the US. You brought your struggles, you brought your experiences that has gotten you to where you are today. As we close out and we usually leave a message to the people who are thinking about getting into leadership or thinking about transitioning. I always ask, well, what can you tell them? But I'm going to ask you a different question. For someone who is thinking about leaving their country, stepping out on faith and coming to the US or going somewhere else, what would you say to them?
I want to say a lot, but
This is your time. The
yeah,
floor is
I
yours.
yeah, I think so yeah, a few things. One is that trust your instinct. That's definitely one. When you are embarking into something that you don't have an idea as to what's going to happen, whether it will work out for you. Um, it's always good to do some research for sure, and then ask people about it. Like especially for those people who have gone through the journey, because I believe that with the advent of social media technology, we do have that capability of reaching out to people. So yeah, have an informed decision, and then trust your instinct because for me, I did just that, and so far it worked out it worked out well for me. Another thing is to always know your limitations and ask for help when needed. So this is for leaders and even for all of us. Sometimes we have the tendency, and I'm not so sure if this is just maybe an Asian mentality. Um, we have the tendency not to ask for help even if we are struggling, just because we don't want to be seen as somebody who is weak. But what I've learned here in the United States is that it's actually okay to ask. Like, you will not be judged if you ask. For me, I sort of see it now as a strength, because if you ask for help, that means that you are actually aware as to what your limitations are. And therefore, when you ask, you are also leveraging on the expertise and experience of others, right? And by asking, then that will be the time that you will get help. Because if you don't ask, then you will never get help, right? So yeah, always ask for help when needed, because again, you will not be judged. And I would say that I think my third pointer is really try to, I think, reflect on what do you want in life. The main reason why I moved here in the United States, it's not just really for the dollars, like when I was younger and when I started the nursing profession, I would say that many of the nursing students that I studied nursing with initially thought of going to the United States will be our ticket to financial freedom, because you can get more money there in the United States or here in the United States as opposed to just working there in my home country. But I realized that it's not really just that. Like, the reason why I moved here in the United States is because I wanted to do more for my career and to actually make an impact to my community, as a nurse and as an educator. So if you're thinking of just moving just because of the money, yeah, maybe you can achieve that, or maybe not. It really depends. But if you move to a place, because you know that there are opportunities there that can help you become a better you, that can help you become a better member of your community, a better human being in this world, I think lean on to that. Because when you lean onto that, when you know that you're moving to a place because you can do what you're passionate about, things will just align. You will meet the right people, opportunities will open up for you. So yeah, it's very important to know what you are passionate about, and yeah, before you make the transition, before you make the move.
Wow. And for the people who don't know who Dr. A is, he's so humble, but I'm about to expose him. Here's Dr. A. 23,000 followers on LinkedIn. We're talking about a year in the United States. This man is a social media influencer. He empowers the people that he's around. He grows new leaders. He grows new educators. This man is amazing. And I have been in awe in just the knowledge that you have shared with me, the knowledge that you have shared with our viewers on Sound Leadership. What you have shared with us is you have to believe in yourself. When you believe in yourself, you can't fail. What you said is, I'm not afraid to fail. If somebody tell me no, I'll figure it out and keep working it. And that's that testament to grit. And as we bring this to a close, I saw something in the background and I've been reading it right behind you. Grind, hustle, success, and what's that other one?
Execution.
Man, I've been reading it. If that's not motivational, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I always give those four words in mind. For us to have success, yeah, we have to do the grind, we have to execute, and yeah, we just have to work hard towards it. And yeah, we have to believe, because if you yourself do not believe in yourself, then nothing will be possible. But if you believe, things will just be possible.
Wow. Well, Dr. A, I appreciate you for coming on Sound Leadership with DJ. It has truly been amazing. Thank you for taking time out of your day to speak with me. It has been a blessing.
Thank you so much, DJ, for having me at Sound Leadership. I just would like to say that I'm really grateful that there are people like you in our profession who are trying to also share and leverage, this type of platforms to showcase what nurses can do just beyond the bedside,
Yes.
because we do a lot of things. And yeah, continue doing what you are doing, because you are making an impact, not just to the people around us, but actually to the nursing profession. So thank you.
Oh man, listen. Thank you, Dr. A. Thank you for everyone who's watching Sound Leadership with DJ. It has truly been a pleasure. I hope you've gained valuable insights from Dr. A. He's talked about being in the U.S. for just 1 year. He's talked about, leveraging his experience as an ICU nurse and then transitioning to a post-acute care setting, where he now had to take care of 8 to 10 patients where he was used to 1 or 2. He's talked about it all. He's laid his cards on the table. And that's what sound leadership is. It's a platform to connect with all types of people who are leaders with various backgrounds. If you've enjoyed this episode, we encourage you to like and follow our social media pages for more great content. You can follow us on YouTube and LinkedIn at Sound Leadership with DJ. Also, don't forget, you can tune into this podcast and others just like it on your favorite platforms that include Apple Music, Alexa, iHeartRadio, and so much more. Simply search Sound Leadership with DJ and hit that subscribe button to stay up to date. What I want you to remember is leadership is a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. Dr. A has shared that with us. With over 10 years of experience in various countries, it took him to transition to the U.S. to land the road that he wanted to. Believe in yourself and things will come true. Thank you from Sound Leadership with DJ.